Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Content Crowd. I'm your host, Trevor Grimes. The Content Crowd is a podcast where we like to explore what makes content resonates, from creative habits to point of view shifts to behind the scenes breakdown, so that listeners and also me alike can stop mimicking others and start making something that really matters. Always like to start off these episodes by reminding you that this show is sponsored by Scrappy ABM. Scrappy ABM helps you build repeatable account-based marketing plays and teaches you and your team how to actually own them so that you can bring ABM in-house when you're ready. So go to scrappyabm.com to find out more. I am pleased to bring on a guest who goes by the name of Benji Block. He doesn't go by it. That's his actual name. But this is Benji Block, who is he's a fellow podcaster and videographer and just all around creative. And I'm super excited to talk with him today. I know he has a lot of great things to share. Benji, thank you so much for being here.
Awesome, man. Thanks for the invite. Excited to get into this today.
Yeah, so I'll just hop in. I'm going to let you. I will butcher anything about you. So I want you to go and just kind of let me know. Tell me who you are and what you do, and what do you tell people? You know, the dreaded question of what do you do for a living?
What I tell people I do for a living now is I help companies build impact through video. I think that's the simplest way, the one-liner to get into conversation. But I've spent the last 5 years helping build 55 plus podcasts from scratch. I've coached 100 plus basically business leaders on how to get better at communication and specifically use video to grow their business, and spent years in agency world and had the privilege to work with a lot of awesome companies, organizations. And before that was in nonprofit kind of church world, actually, for a number of years, leading creative teams. So that all sort of led me to jump out, and 2025 was the year of starting my own thing. So I help companies build impact with video through my company, Signature Series, and we do a lot of video podcasts and that sort of stuff. So that's where I sit, if that helps clarify.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have after this, have some pointers. Have a friendly critique of how I'm doing now.
Sure.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I mean, I've talked to a few people on here that do video or do like a podcast or do similar. What's the strongest, I guess, like reasoning for doing a video podcast? Like, I know that typically we think of podcasts as just an audio medium. So what's the benefit of doing both and doing a video version and an audio version?
It's like a really important question, and one that I think a lot of people are wondering coming out of COVID. I feel like podcasts in business world specifically, maybe just in general, I don't know about your experience with podcasting, but it just skyrocketed when COVID happened. Yeah. And as businesses were starting podcasting, they were thinking, oh, well, like an audio only platform, this is really easy. We're in people's earbuds, essentially. They're doing other tasks, but we're getting to sort of get our point of view out there. People could get behind that. Other people are starting podcasts just to network with people. And that's also a great play, right, for podcasting. I think the main transition to video is not for everybody, actually. It depends on what your strategy is, as does all things. But the main thing for me is, if we're going to actually sit down and record something, and we know that all the social media platforms require video in order to play on them, why would we spend our time just recording the audio and essentially letting it end there, when you can easily just turn on your camera and start, and then up level you can endlessly spend money on equipment and all of that. I get it. It feels scary maybe to get into video. It's not scary to crawl, walk, run into video. It just takes a little bit of knowledge. But I think that's the main thing, is like you're in somebody's earbuds and they're getting to hear your voice, which is amazing when you're listening to an audio podcast. But as soon as they can see your face, there's a level of personalization where now you're like, oh, this is an actual human. It feels like I'm getting to be a fly on the wall in, like, for instance, right now, as people are watching us, it's like Trevor and Benji are talking, and I feel like I'm a part of that conversation in a much different way than if I'm just listening to audio. Plus, we get to put it on a bunch of different platforms, cut it up, and use it for social. So that's probably the main benefit.
Yeah, I love one, like the trust building, and also just feeling like you're a fly on the wall. I know I've heard the term, and this may be a derogatory term. It feels kind of derogatory, but people are like parasocial relationships with the people that you watch, But I don't know if that's actually a negative term, but I like that kind of thing. Like I like feeling like I know somebody personally. I like that I've never met, I like feeling like I'm in like a, friend group. Maybe I'm not really in. But I really, I think that's such a good point. Is just listening is great, but when you can actually insert yourself into a conversation or feel like you're inserting yourself, that visual medium helps out a lot. And I also love that you talk about, I think this is a thread throughout all of your content is like the building trust aspect. And so I would think that if you're helping companies do this and build trust, that there's you probably have some rule or philosophy when it comes to creating content or helping people become content creators. And I'd love to know, like, what is your thoughts on having that one like rule or philosophy that you kind of believe in when it comes to creating?
Interesting. I think there's a lot of different sort of IP or ways I can think about creation. The one that immediately came to mind, just because we were just talking about video, is a simple sort of strategy for businesses that they could use to just start recording content. And Trevor, if you want me to go a different direction, you tell me, or I can give you a different thing. But one that I've begun to harp on quite a bit is just this idea of 230, meaning if you could just get yourself locked in when it comes to content to go, I'm going to spend 2 days every 6 months on recording long form content. And then I'm going to spend 30 minutes every month answering essentially like questions and recording content in just like short bite-sized formats. That's like the play that I run with a lot of executives right now. So the idea is that they're going to give me two days. And in the run up to that, I'm going to pre-plan like 8 to 10 episodes for them or 12 episodes, whatever it is. And we're going to record like a whole season of content in those 2 days. And it's just going to be a blitz. But then to supplement that throughout the year to get some like short form content for LinkedIn and all of that, and to continue to build trust month after month, talk about more relevant, timely topics, we're going to schedule a 30-minute recurring meeting. And in those 30 minutes, typically I can ask 10 to 15 questions. The best of the best gets cut into video clips and the rest gets put into LinkedIn written posts. And so now you have this really great, easy to execute content plan. And so that's sort of where I start with people is just, we can easily run this play. And as to your point, when you are trying to build trust online, I think there's sort of those two buckets, right? You want the short kind of quippy stuff just to go out on LinkedIn really fast and people kind of get to know your personality and how you, all that stuff. And then you want like, oh, I need to also show I am an expert in this, which is long form content that people can digest and hear your IP, your templates, your thinking on things. And that's what those 2 days every 6 months kind of accomplishes.
Wow. That's an incredible, like formula. I mean, I think people are always looking for that kind of, or some kind of like batching formula or something where it's like, I'm going to spend an hour every week on this day or whatever. But like, you really take it to like a pretty, sorry, must be delivering mail. My dogs are getting upset. But you take it to a not an extreme level, but a very like, Matt, like you said, like if you can spend 2 days, and I'm assuming when you say 2 days, you mean like 2 8-hour days. So totally.
Yeah, it's if you do 8 episodes, if you think about it, if we're doing 30 to 45-minute podcast episodes, typically most people can't record, like they can't get their brain to think through more than 4 topics in a day. Even people who have been communicating for years and years at a high level, if you try to think through 4 unique template topics, imagine running a session of some sort. If you're running 4, after those 4, it's kind of like your brain turns into mush. So I typically tell people, even if it's only, let's call it 4 to 5 hours of recording time.
Yeah.
That's going to be plenty for a day. So then you could go back, maybe you need to respond to email, get some work done. So you're not totally, just off on your own recording content for 2 full days. But the idea is that we're going to record those 8 to 12 episodes in a 2-day sprint.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say like we get the higher number, we get 12. So we can record, maybe we record 4 or 5 episodes the first day. The next day we record 6 or 7. So that's 12 episodes. If you're doing an episode a week. So that basically those 2 days you've recorded out, or you've like, basically like you've got like 6 months of content or however long. And then the 30 days, the 30 minutes, is that every month?
Yeah. Once a month, typically. To be honest, a lot of C-suite execs don't have a full hour to give me more often than once a month.
Yeah.
And so in an hour, though, typically if we can get through 15 questions, and I like to ask questions multiple times, we want to make sure that hooks are strong and all that sort of stuff. But 30 minutes, you could do it in 30 minutes. And that's why I use the 230, because that's like, if you really need to truncate it down, just ask for the 30 minutes once a month, ask 10 questions, get in and out. And a lot of content teams will nod in agreement and say amen when they say, like, I think I can get 30 minutes once a month with my C-suite execs. But it even that seems like pulling teeth at first. I get it.
Yeah. No, I love that, the idea of like 30 minutes is like not a lot of time, but in the same way, if you can bring 15 questions and you can ask them and maybe they get a minute to answer it. And then, by the time you're done, you've spent 30 minutes, you've got 15. I mean, that's enough to post 3 videos a week, for the whole month. And I think like where I see a lot of people getting stuck, and I'm sure you see this too, is that like they go into wanting to create content and it's like 5 times a week or every single day or twice a day. And it's kind of like, like you're going to get burnt out on that, or you're not going to have a system in place that's going to like do that. And so like with the 230 system, like you're spending 2 whole days every 6 months or whatever, but that's 2 days. And that seems a little bit easier to do than to spend 2 hours every week or even an hour every week. And so you've got the 2 hours the 2 days, in the beginning of the month or whatever, and then 30 minutes every month. And then, and that helps you like have that batch of content. I just really love that idea and that thought, because, I'll sit down to do things like that. And I'm thinking, well, I'm batching, 2 podcast episodes. And then if I can keep them under an hour, I'm lucky, but also I'm kind of getting off on tangents a lot of times and things like that. But sometimes you get too like loose with your ideas. And so the idea of like going super hard one day and recording 2 episodes and then creating all the content from it. And then like by the end of the week, you're burnt out and then you don't post for 2 more weeks, because you sort of, so I love the idea of like batching content in a way that still gives you like the time to do other things. Like you didn't have to, skip going to the gym this entire week to record content or skip like hanging out with your family or whatever that is. Cause I feel like that's the trap. Like, at least for me, that's a trap I fall into a lot of times, where I'll get super into creating or doing something. And everything else sort of falls to the wayside. And then the next week comes around and I skip a few weeks of creating content and I don't stay consistent. But I love that mindset of like, it's like 30 minutes is that's what you have to do, that once a month. You don't have to do it every week or every day, just like once a month for 30 minutes. Like I can do that. I can find 30 minutes a month.
If somebody's like just trying to grow their personal brand, so maybe you're listening to this and you're going, okay, well, I'm not like an exec and no one's going to just ask questions to me. So how would I do that? There's 2 really simple ways, honestly. And one, you could just pull up 15 questions, go back and forth with ChatGPT about your niche and find 15 questions. And you just straight up press record on your phone and answer those 15 questions. And it'll take you about 30 minutes. You can do that on your own and then use CapCut or something to cut clips that you're going to use. That's one way to do it. You could also just find another friend who's like a content creator, and you guys could just go back and forth and ask each other questions or prep questions for each other. So it's not just like there's a lot of different ways to do this method. And obviously to expand on it too, if you want to go beyond like talking head type videos. But I think the philosophy further like behind all of this comes from just a place of realizing over time, over years of doing content, pre-production is by far the most important and often overlooked thing. And it's all the stuff that you do before you hit record that is going to make when you post the content actually impactful and less of a headache for you. And so I think that's where this kind of comes from, is like, you don't need the 230 model in order to do that. You can create whatever you want, but you do need some sort of focus to go, why am I creating what I'm creating? I really want to hone that in. And I want to feel like what we're about to record, drives at the end result of what we're trying to get at with this, with the strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. yeah, like you said, even if you're not wanting to use the 230 method exactly, like there's something similar from that you can create, and that pre-production part of like putting those questions together. Because I think the biggest, like, I mean, creative block doesn't come from sitting there trying to, in my opinion, doesn't come from sitting there trying to think, what am I going to put on the page? I think creative block comes from you've like set up the camera and you like press record, and then you're like, well, what am I going to, I thought that all the ideas would come to me, and they're not. And, that's where you get, in my episode last week, I talked about taking a stack of note cards and just writing like one thought, on each card. And then from there, like building out ideas. And that's what I use. I literally have a stack of note, they're out too far to reach, but like I have a stack of note cards right there where I've just wrote one thought that I had that came from notes that I took, my phone or whatever, and then just kind of group them together. So the next time that I've got to sit down and I've got to talk about, well, content creation can mean so many different things. Maybe the next time I'm recording, I'm going to talk about content creation frameworks. And it's like, okay, like I have my own, and I have this one that Benji talks about, and I can talk about that. And I have everybody that I've talked to has had some sort of like philosophy or idea when it comes to creating. And so that's like that, taking that pre-production time to think about specifically what the topic I want to talk about around content creation. And then from there you break in like, what are your content pillars and all those things. But I think like just like taking the time to plan something very minimal. I think it will provide like exponential growth when it comes to actually creating.
Trevor, I can give you another one based on your cards. I feel like this is I wish I could tell you which creator it was that said this, but I was watching a YouTube video like a few months ago now, and they just talked about the 3x3 method. So you kind of have your overarching topic. You think of the 3 main points you want to make in your video, and then 3 mini points for each of those. And that's your video. So it's like, and I even think about that back to when I was running a daily podcast and I was interviewing business leaders, sometimes doing 7 to 10 interviews a week. What I would do is I would just think of 5 questions, and that just having 5 niched down, hyper specific questions. Maybe it was like they made a LinkedIn post, I summarize that LinkedIn post, ask a question. Okay, I have 1 question now, and then 4 more. So it's like very simple, just 5. But I think the same thing is true for the 3x3, where it's like, okay, if I'm trying to get at this kind of main topic and I only have 3 subtopics that I can pick, and then 3 bullet points under each of those, now it's like, that's just such an easy framework of essentially now you have 9 things you're going to say, and then you're going to wrap up. It's going to be over. That's what people need to be thinking of in like pre-production mode is, this is what we're driving at. This is some of how we're going to drive at it. And then obviously if we're going hyper specific with video, the overlooked stuff when you're beginning as a content creator is you think because you have a topic that your pre-production is like 90% of the way done, but you haven't thought of the hook or the first 30 seconds, and you haven't thought about the thumbnail at all. And you haven't thought of, let's call it 3 to 5 different titles potentially for YouTube. I think that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about pre-production, is that all of that sort of bucketed together.
Yeah, no, I love that, because I wrote that down, the 3x3. I'm gonna look that up, because I think I do that subconsciously already, but like for some reason there's like something about the number like 3 always seems to, because a lot of things that I talk about when people, I don't typically like coach people on like video like you're talking about, but I have people that ask for advice, and it's like, well, what are your content pillars? Like, you really need to nail down 3. And it's like, well, I want to talk about finance, and I want to talk about minimalism, and I want to talk about coffee. And it's like, where does coffee fit into that? Like, I think that third one is kind of weird. Let's try to, maybe there's a lifestyle element of that we can break into, but like, find your 3, and that's the 3. You want 3 things that people can relate to you. If you just focus on finance, that's awesome. People, you'll have finance people, but finance and minimalism kind of go together. And then finance and minimalism and, I don't know, like organization, those kind of things kind of go together. And you've built those 3 like content pillars. And then from there, like you said, you think of 3 topics, and I think subliminally while you're recording, even if you haven't like written out a full script, knowing that I got to talk about, I had these 3 titles in mind, I think it also just like helps your mind stay on track of like, these are the things that I'm going to talk about. I think that's,
you also realize with titling after the fact, because I have been A/B testing my titles on YouTube a lot. and I promise there's so many more ways to title a video than you think.
Yeah.
When your head kind of gets locked into like, this is the topic, so this must be the title. But then if you, even using AI for this, go to ChatGPT, you could either give it the full transcript of your video, or you could just give it the first, call it minute, and say, give me like 20 titles based on, and credit to Jake Thomas for this, but based on fear, curiosity, and desire, those 3 human emotions, give me different title options, and then just change it out like every week, even for your old videos. And there's so many combos of titles that can work for people and can be click worthy. And the same thing is true with thumbnails, but I will say like thumbnails are just so much more time consuming. So you have to decide on what, like how often that's worth it. But I do think playing with that stuff, if you think about what drives a click, if you actually believe in the content that is in that video, that it is actually helpful to your potential audience, then changing out the title and the thumbnail, even in your back catalog, is worth the time.
Yeah, no. I love that. Because you can, I know that YouTube, like, well, not recently, but I think like kind of recently, like rolled out where you can A/B test thumbnails. Can you A/B test titles as well? Is that an option?
I think for big accounts you can. I am not a big enough account to do that, but you could just go swap it out. So typically I already have my pre-production doc that has like what's going to be in that video, and I'm thinking of like, call it 3 to 5 titles. So I just know, okay, I'm going to try this one first, this one second, this one third. And I have that written out. So if one ends up sort of driving more, I can go back and I can see what it was previously. But yeah, that would be great for YouTube if they would roll that out.
Yeah. So you're just like, you've set like some metrics, and if this video isn't doing what you think it should be by a certain point, you kind of look at it and you start changing. Like just sort of like before we could A/B test things, we just kind of had to see how they performed and then decided if we were going to change it. So
yeah, but it's like on my personal stuff, if it plateaus, I know if I go switch out the thumbnail, at least to some minimal audience. I don't know. It's not like I have a big YouTube account for my personal that I'm doing a lot of the testing on, but for that, like it can only help. It can't hurt. Like they're going to boost that in recommended to like a few more people. And that new thumbnail is going to drive some level of traffic or new clicks. And that to me feels worth it. If I believe in that video specifically. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was just curious if you had like a specific, like, cause that's something that I recommend doing too, is like, whatever, either waiting till it plateaus or just having like a test period of where like, okay, if in the first, which I think like there's some people throw out rules of like, if it doesn't do X amount in the first 24 hours, do it. And I don't think I get that. I don't think I could get that extreme. I usually just like give it a few more days and see what it's doing, because sometimes it's like you leave something alone and then you look a week later and it's like really gone off the rails in a good way. So, but yeah, I love that. I love the method of thinking about that. I love the 3x3 method. And then you mentioned the, what was it? Fear, curiosity, and
curiosity, and desire. So this is purely Jake Thomas. If you don't follow him on LinkedIn, you should. He is all about YouTube titles, and what is it called? Creator Hooks, I think is the name of his tool that you can go get. And so anyway, you can find a bunch of interviews with him. He's built several channels. I saw he just hit 100,000 followers again on another new channel that he just made. But
very cool.
The idea there is just fear, curiosity, and desire are the 3 human emotions that drive people to click. It's psychology. And so I think the take on when we're titling something, it's not clickbait if the content itself is actually like providing value. And so what he's saying there is not like just scare people so they click on it. He's saying if we should be afraid of something, right? Like if you're a doctor and you know a bunch of the symptoms or things that could lead to somebody having cancer, that you could create a title around a video like that is fear-inducing in some way, but is actually worth somebody clicking on that video. So you want to know what human emotion you're actually trying to bring forth in your title. And you can actually then take that into the first 30 seconds. So if you're writing a script for a video, think about, am I trying to get somebody to desire something in this content? Am I trying to get someone to have fear around something like, oh, you might lose money if you don't invest this way or that sort of thing. And then curiosity, that's a great one to tap into, where it's like, you'll see this on TikTok a lot, where if somebody has like a book that they're recommending, they don't show the binding of the book in the video, they flip it around, whatever. That's just because that's a way to open a loop in your head where now curiosity is going to be sparked. And so yeah, curiosity, fear, desire are the three human emotions that are best to tap into.
Yeah, no, I love that. Because I think people get maybe like turned off by either not like by clickbait, but maybe like they're afraid of using clickbait in their content, like even just for writing like an opening line to your LinkedIn post. And it's like, you mentioned this a few times, but it's like, if you truly believe that what you're writing or what you're creating is helping somebody, you should want to make sure it grabs the right, the right attention or the right emotion. If we're, looking at the fear, curiosity, and desire. So I think that is a great point, that like, when you're trying to create content and you're trying to do your best and you're putting all this time and effort, you want people to see it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with making it. As long as you're delivering, people will stay. You're building that trust. As long as you're delivering what the promise is, or what the fear is, or the solution to whatever you've introduced, that loop you've opened, then it's a great, it's a great formula to do that.
Well, and real quick on this, I think in video content specifically, and because there's so many people who are just, I don't want to call them snake oil salesmen kind of, but there's so many people who are just creating content to try to tell other people how to go viral. I don't want to be that kind of person. It's not the type of video that I even create, but I think around hooks specifically, because you hear so many people talking about hooks, I roll my eyes. I get sick of hearing that. And the truth is, people have been trying to get people's attention for millennia. Go back as far as you want before video was ever a thing. And why do poems start the way they start? Why do books start the way they start? It's because they are trying to bring you into a story. And actually, the best way to honor your audience is by getting them interested.
Yeah.
And so whether that's myth, whether that's the parables of like a spiritual teacher like Jesus, like all they're doing is they're trying to get you interested in something. And so if you go look at like the best novels, right? The best one-liners to open novels, what are they doing? They're writing a hook, but we didn't call it that. And we didn't eye roll at that. We just got engaged in the story. So the best, let's call them quote unquote hooks, are not clickbait. They're not just like trying to say anything just to get you like flustered. It's doing it with intention so that what you deliver after that one line, like you're setting up a story, you're setting up something that takes somebody on a journey. And that's just getting better at storytelling. That's just getting better at communication, which I think humanity is better off if we do that. But not when we just do it for the sake of like, oh, if I get somebody to watch the first 7 seconds of this video, it's going to make me go viral. It's like, there's just a disconnect, I think, in video world because of TikTok and YouTube shorts and views and all that.
Yeah, no, that is, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, think about how many books you've read, or I mean, even just movies you've watched where, chapter 1 or the opening starts in the middle of like an intense scene, and this might be like kind of out of, maybe too low of a reading level, but like I always loved the series of Unfortunate Events books growing up,
too.
And those start like each chapter starts with like the perilous part, the part that's like crazy and they're hanging off of a cliff or whatever. That's why people usually skip over the introductions or like the preludes of books, because chapter 1 starts usually with something pretty intense, and you go back and read the prelude later if you want some more context. But like, even with that, like, I love that you mentioned that. I love, like, honestly, I've everything you've said, I've really enjoyed, because I love the way you're framing things, because, creating, if you're a content creator, I mean, everybody consumes a lot of content, but I feel like as content creators, we're consuming in a different way, maybe consuming a lot more, but also you're just kind of seeing these things and you're like, you immediately smell, when something is awry in a video or something, and you're like, oh, they're gonna, here's another, like, I mean, just on TikTok, every TikTok I've seen the past like 3 days, and like, here's 3 things you should do in December if you want to like go viral. And I'm like, at this point, like, what is the point in virality at this point? Like, there's just like,
Can I give you one right now that I'm so frustrated by?
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So I love My First Million. So I'm not here to rag on My First Million, but Sam Parr, I've been following him for a long time. And just recently they recorded short form content for him. And so I don't know if I saw it on like Instagram stories or LinkedIn. I saw it somewhere, right?
No.
Where they posted a behind the scenes thing. And he basically was saying like, we're going to test if I hold a spatula with a mic attached to it, will I get more views than if I just wear it?
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought was of Alex Hormozy. I think it was like 2 years ago now, but I'm horrible at times. So it might be sooner or further away. I have no idea. But I remember Alex saying for a while, he just tried to Mr. Beast his channel. Like did all the crazy stuff, tried to get as many views as possible. And his true focus, his true care, his true intention, his true purpose has always been for the business community. Mm-hmm. And then he went and all of a sudden he was chasing views. He was getting way more views, but it was people that he ultimately couldn't really do business with. And it wasn't his ideal audience. And I thought the same thing about Sam just in the last few weeks where I'm like, obviously he knows way more than me. He's built a big audience. He's trying to continue to scale something. So maybe it's just all about views at this point. It's just, I sniff something there where I'm like, I personally don't really want to be the video guy who's testing if holding a spatula is going to get me more views than not holding a spatula.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say, that's so funny because I like during COVID, I hosted like a video show with just like friends on Facebook where I like reviewed albums and stuff. And I can probably find like a screenshot and send you, but I always had up my lapel mic on a spatula, like on like a
I'm not anti-spatula.
Yeah.
I'm anti if the content is just if that's what we're micro testing, I think that's where I lose interest.
I
totally have fun, dude. Have
fun.
That
again, that doesn't. I don't think that translates to your point. I don't think that translates to like the typical business audience that's probably watching that is trying to make more, like trying to make better videos in a business context, probably, or an educational context, and like. He's like, oh, well, I did get more views holding a spatula, and then they go and do the same thing. Maybe they do get more views, but again, like it's probably not going to be the right audience. I mean, at some point, like you have to think like, those numbers look awesome. Those vanity metrics look awesome. But like, if I'm, who's liking this? Who's looking at this? A bunch of fake accounts or a bunch of, bots or just like people who just like, I got boosted in the algorithm and whatever, but it doesn't translate to, it's not gonna keep the lights on,
Right.
And even if you're lucky enough to have a platform or, an account on a platform and you're getting enough views to make like AdSense or something like that, that still doesn't, building the loyal audience is what is most important. I have friends that have, they're like full-time YouTubers, but like, they're not like focused on the AdSense, they're getting, there's other things and they're providing real value and they have 10,000 subscribers, and are able to do this full time because they think about it in that way. They're not going after like, obviously like titles and thumbnails and all those things that you mentioned are super important. And we want to do that so that we create the best content for the people and that the people who are looking for it find it. But at the end of the day, like, if I'm putting all my effort into, just trying to go viral on TikTok or whatever, like I've lost the I don't know, the path to actually creating content for somebody that's meaningful.
And I think that therein lies kind of a question, like going back to the Sam example. It was really fun when I was in high school, kind of making content, not thinking about the total view count, but just making videos because I loved making videos. And we would try stupid stuff all the time. I would gladly have attached my mic to a spatula because I thought it was funny. And I think, honestly, if I think it's funny, other people might think it's funny, right? But then it can get to a place of gamification where it's like, if you go watch some of the top channels that are telling you how to make content, they'll be like, yeah, well, if you hold a cucumber or you hold some random object for your whole video, like that'll get you more views. And that's where my brain just kind of has an alarm going off of like, get back to the intention and the purpose and the focus and the strategy, because just looking for the next tip and trick. In the same way, I would say, going back to the 230 model, the 3x3 stuff we talked about, any of the strategies, like the tactics themselves, that's a layer up from like the
Yeah.
philosophy under it and the values that you hold as a person and what you deeply kind of care about and want to put out into the world. And I think a lot of people will look back at their content that they created just trying to use the tips and tricks, and they'll kind of cringe at some of it because it wasn't really them. And I think the pursuit of making content that's more human and more us is, it makes video more fun. I'll say that. It makes creating more fun when you feel like you can just be you.
I mean, I'd love to give a tip about holding things. I think if you want to hold something that's really going to boost your video's value,
Where are you about to go with this?
Hold a whiteboard, you know, hold a notebook where you're writing, or I don't know if you can see this, tape of something to your door and write on it in a video to get a point of, like, I think like
it works.
That's like, forget the cucumber or the spatula or whatever. Like, put the value. Like, if you're just trying to fill up space and you're just trying to have somebody immediately. I mean, there's one guy that I follow on YouTube that does like zero editing. He is just in front of a whiteboard talking and writing, and I'm like, that guy has like a lot of value. You know, like he doesn't do anything, and obviously like there are outliers like that all around. But I think like if you're looking for the thing that's going to maybe not boost your videos like views, but boost the value, like start doing those kind of things. Like that they're actually, if you got to hold something random, you know, hold a whiteboard or a notebook or something, give people something to like really take away from it.
Yep. That's fun. That's good.
I'm going to wrap up with our typical question I ask everybody. I think we've probably covered this throughout all of these, but I'll let you have sort of the last like bit of like, this is what I want to you know, like end on. But it is, what is the one hill that you'll die on when it comes to content?
Dude, I feel like this was in the survey and I have no idea what I answered.
Well, I would say that like I would say that everything we've talked about has been encapsulated. I will say that when we you know, we did pre-production before this. I'll just say you answered this question, but you basically said that you don't want to be in an arms race for people's attention. Attention is the important resource, and I want to respect people's time. More is not better.
So
I think like
I know what you're saying.
We covered all this basically, but I think you know, if you could encapsulate all that in one, what would it be?
Yeah, I'll encapsulate it this way: more pre-production. I think that's the best way of thinking about it. Pre-production, maybe you even sub that word out for strategy. Why are you doing what you're doing in any type of content, whether that's written, video? I see this with teams, but I think we have the same internal war where in teams, what happens is multiple people, multiple stakeholders have different visions for content. So it keeps changing and we don't really know what we're driving towards, what we're aiming at. And then at a personal level, when we're creating content, maybe we're trying to just like do something personally that we're proud of. We have competing things internally. Oh, do I want to do this? Do I want to be known for that? Is this something that I feel like I'm an expert in? And so your multiple stakeholders in your head are arguing with each other. And all of that getting fleshed out into some sort of strategy is a hill I would die on. Like actually sit down and write out why you're doing what you're doing. And that will give you a lot more clarity when you actually hit record or write the next article or series of things that you're going to write. Because I think clarity is helpful for you as the creator, but then ultimately for your audience as well. Like clarity is what resonates, right? So more pre-production in every sense.
Yeah, great piece of advice to end on. Do you talk about these kind of things on like your YouTube channel? Do you go over?
So funny enough, Trevor, I do not, and I will tell you why. I got really tired of talking about content. I love the conversation. I nerd out on this stuff. I talk to clients about it, but on my personal YouTube, I talk about core values. I talk about divergent thinking. I talk about the importance of curiosity.
Nice.
Because I think that's the stuff that at like a philosophical level, I really genuinely care about. So yeah, I share some of this stuff on LinkedIn. Absolutely. On
Yeah.
signatureseries.co, you can find some articles that I've written about some of this stuff, and happy to also like discuss it with people. But I do think getting better at content requires you to create content, not about content. It's a weird thing to say, but like I needed an avenue to make stuff that wasn't me talking about making stuff.
Yeah. I
And
think
so
you just hit me hard there.
But
no, I think that's right. I think to be
yeah,
better at writing for like you have to do the opposite. I think to be better at writing for like business, you need to quit reading like self-help
just
and business books and read some fantasy, you know, something like that. And I think like the opposite, like if you want to be but yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, you know, you get tired of talking about content. I mean, I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, how can I talk about content creation without it being about content creation? Like, how can I just, you know, how can I give like some kind of weird, like, you know, I don't know. Like right now I'm doing like there's no way I'll be able to do it daily. I already know, but I'm trying to do, that's what this is for. It's a Vlogmas. I'm doing Vlogmas right now. So that's what I'm putting all my time into because I've been like, I've got the podcast and I've got other things and, you know, being a full-time content creator for other people and then wanting to do something for myself. So I really want to spend another 6 hours a week talking about more content. And I don't know yet, you know, I feel you there. I'm in that point, but no, this has been awesome.
That was my whole career, man. So like, I definitely get it. I was running a daily podcast where all we were doing was talking about B2B content.
Yeah.
I swim in those waters still. I make video content for people. But I also, I will leave it on this, just like as an encouraging note, maybe to you and to anybody listening, is if there's stuff that you're passionate about, that's like outside of like for instance, in this case, I'll just say it makes a lot of sense for me as the CEO and the founder of Signature Series to just make content about content. And when I have an epiphany, I will share that on LinkedIn. I will use that to better service my clients. But if there are other things that I am passionate about, which in this case would be like the thing behind the thing for people. What are the core values that drive us? What are the things that at like a philosophical level, like the deep stuff in us, the character stuff.
Yeah.
I really love those conversations.
Yeah.
So it would be a shame for me to spend all my bandwidth just creating content to help people make better content when I could just use what I know to make videos about stuff that I feel like will genuinely maybe help people pursue living with more integrity or more curiosity or more courage or whatever it is. Those are conversations I would love to have. And so I'm just at a different point right now where I know that. And so I want to use what I know about content to make that kind of content. So everybody's at a different point in the journey, but
no, I love that. And I mean, like, again, we could go on and on. I did want to mention that this is my 21st episode, which I believe I need to make sure, but I think I've spewed this stat out a few times, but 21 episodes makes you the top 1% of podcast creators.
It's
I think
crazy.
So we're right. Thank you so much for being my 21st episode. I am.
It's like we should have a drink or something since it's.
I know.
We're 21
I was
now.
like, I really, I really was like, oh, I need a balloon or something to like pop. I used to do that on videos where I had like a balloon full of confetti that I would pop and there was like something inside of it, but the confetti never goes away. I mean, there was like my vacuum like 2 years later still has confetti in it. Anyway, I'll do something crazier for that later. But I thank you again so much, Benji, for being here. I think you're super busy and I appreciate you giving me the time to chat through this and giving some super great advice. I mean, you're definitely if you have the time in the future, I'd love for you to be a repeat guest because I think there's a lot of other ways that we can go into it. Because I'm also interested in how this podcast has evolved, especially with my solo episodes. I've kind of got a little bit more like thought-provoking on what I'm talking about because talking B2B and talking content is great. But, you know, sometimes I want to know, why do you want to create content or how can you communicate what you truly enjoy and what you truly love and in a way that fits into your realm. So I think I've got to go find your YouTube channel because I think I need to start watching some of that. So
awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for watching.